Hello, I am Kaiosho, and this is Ramblatory Nonsense, or something I might call a Ramblatory Rant. I don't know. Basically, this series, if you're unaware, is just me talking about a subject, just rambling to myself, to you, whoever you are. Uh, so I was just having a conversation with my friend Equinoxinator. I actually met him through YouTube. He was one of my first subscribers, and then we basically become friends and talk on Steam a lot. And yeah, anyways, so he told me that he played Metal Gear Solid 4 without playing the previous games, and that he was confused about the story, and everything was convoluted, and yeah, and then he said he couldn't play Metal Gear Solid 1, didn't really know why he couldn't play. I don't know. We didn't really go into that in depth yet, but that drives me crazy. Uh, I am obsessed with order. Order of consuming anything, whether it's movies, books, TV shows. I hate things being out of order. Um, and I hate consuming them out of order if I can help it. It's kind of like it's related to my hate of spoilers. It's like if I watch the second movie in a series, I I kind of already know the outcome of the first movie, so I'm spoiling the first movie. That's not always the case. I've definitely had cases where I've seen a movie or a TV show later in its life and then go back and still really enjoy it. And there, spoilers is a whole nother discussion. I Some people don't care about spoilers. Me, I fucking hate them. But so order, um, and specifically with the Metal Gear Solid series. Now, Metal Gear started out as like a original Nintendo Entertainment System NES game. Well, actually, I think it started on the MSX computer, which was a computer over in Japan, um, and it had some story to it, and blah blah blah. Yeah, it was like a stealth game. It was like maybe the first one of the first stealth games. Uh, I honestly I've never played through it. I've tried. I don't like the gameplay. And then there was a sequel. Well, a sequel in the U.S. Snake's Revenge does not count as far as the storyline. It was not made by Hideo Kojima, so it doesn't count. Basically, they wanted a sequel, and he's like, I don't know. Eventually, he did make an actual sequel to Metal Gear 1, and that was, crap, what was the name of it? Metal Gear 2. I can't remember. Anyways, it was released on the Super Nintendo, I believe. In the MSX2, I think? Anyways, then Metal Gear Solid, the big hit in the series, came out on on the PlayStation 1 and PC, and then eventually got onto the PS3. But basically, it was a PlayStation game. Um, and in that game, that is where the story really got fleshed out and really became a big deal. And in order to help you understand it, in Metal Gear Solid 1 on the disc, there was a menu to go in. You could actually read the backstory of what happened in the previous games, Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2. Um, so that was actually necessary because a lot of Metal Gear is just a through story that goes throughout the whole series. It's all connected. Um, so you don't need to have played those two games. If you want to play one for the story purposes of those two, play the second one. There's more story to it. But and I did try playing that one too. It's got better gameplay, but I still couldn't. It just I don't know. It was less about story, more about the gameplay, but there was a lot of story in it compared to one. Anyways, Metal Gear Solid is really where the story came together and it became a big deal. And they basically explain the entirety of the other games and stuff. But yeah, so there was Metal Gear Solid 1, and then Metal Gear Solid 2, which was all kinds of wacky and fucked up, but that's Hideo Kojima for you. Like, the first one was already wacky and fucked up, but the second one was, wow, whatever. It was an amazing game, though. I love Metal Gear Solid 2. I absolutely love it. I used to spend time on the internet on the IGN Metal Gear Solid forum, because it was like the only Metal Gear Solid forum in existence back then, and theorize about things related to Metal Gear Solid 2 before Metal Gear Solid 3 came out. So this was, I don't know, early 2000s. And then Metal Gear Solid 3 came out. I played Metal Gear Solid 2 originally by borrowing someone else's PlayStation 2. Well, let's talk about Metal Gear Solid 1. Metal Gear Solid 1, I got a PlayStation specifically to play that game. I'd probably talked about this before in a different episode, but I was at, well, you can probably hear the fireworks in the background. It's the evening of July 3rd, so whatever. So when I was, I don't know how old, whenever Metal Gear Solid came out, was it 98, 99, something like that? I was over at my dad's, visiting my dad's. My parents split up when I was like young, and they were having a party, and a friend came over, and he was playing. He brought his PlayStation and this new game he had just gotten, and it was Metal Gear Solid, and I was blown away watching him play, just watching. And then they ended up getting a PlayStation over there. My step siblings did, and I was able to borrow that game from that dude, and I played a little bit of the beginning of it, and then didn't play because I was only playing it while I was visiting my dad, and then I went home and I was like, fuck, I want to play more of this game. I only played like the first hour or two of it. So, as the side, I went with my mother to a game store shortly after that, and I didn't have a PlayStation. I had a Nintendo 64 at the time, and I couldn't get Metal Gear, so I was at the store, and on the TV, someone had been trying out a game. This was a game store called Video Game Exchange. It was part of a small chain, I think. It no longer exists, at least not around here. But any game you wanted to buy, you could try it out. They had a system set up to different TVs, and you would always, every time you went in there, someone was playing something on one of the TVs. And so on one of the TVs was Mission Impossible for the Nintendo 64. Now, I was aware that Mission Impossible was a TV series, and I think at the time there had been a movie. I think that was, isn't that why the game exists? It was, it was a tie-in to the movie. But on the screen was the very first level, and so I picked up the controller and played it, and it looked like Metal Gear Solid. Like, it starts out with the camera being almost like a top-down kind of thing, just like Metal Gear Solid. You're wearing an outfit similar to Snake's. You're sneaking around. It's snowy, just like the beginning of Metal Gear Solid. It's like, holy shit, this is similar to Metal Gear Solid. I have to get this game, and I did. I ended up getting it. And it, well, Mission Impossible on N64 is kind of, it's clunky. It's fun, but it's not Metal Gear Solid. It's nothing like Metal Gear Solid. How that first level, I'm sure it was basically meant to be a clone of Metal Gear to make it look like it. And then, of course, we had Winback on the N64, which was also kind of inspired by Metal Gear with its graphics and everything, though the gameplay of that was different too. But anyways, so I didn't have Metal Gear, and it was a year or two went by, and I had some money of my own. I don't know how old I was, 15, 16. And I went to Video Game Exchange, and they had a used PlayStation for $30. And I bought that, and I bought Metal Gear Solid. I got the re-release version with the green label that all the classics or whatever the hell they were. And I took it home and I played the hell out of that game. To date, I have played Metal Gear Solid, the PlayStation game, about, I think the count is 13 or 14 times. That sounds crazy, but... And I've also, after you've beaten the game, you can go through. There's an option in the menu to just watch the cutscenes. So if you want to, you can kind of watch it as a movie. And I did that once with my sister, but because I just wanted her to see the story and not have to sit around for all the gameplay because I knew she wouldn't. But yeah, I fucking love Metal Gear Solid. It to this day I feel like the graphics in Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation still hold up. I mean, there's of course there's jaggies. It's a fucking PlayStation, and like the character models are ugly as hell. The facial animations, there aren't really any. There's no mouth movement. There's no lip syncing. The hands are blocks. But the voice acting is so good in like a cartoon / anime kind of way. It's so good. But okay, the story is fucking weird. Hideo Kojima is crazy. The story's kind of based on Escape from New York. I think that was the first Escape from movie. Anyways, like the main character's named after the guy, and it's similar story, but anyways, the story is the main focus of Metal Gear Solid. It's been criticized. The whole series has been criticized for years as being more of a movie than a game, and I don't agree with that. But yeah, there's a lot of cutscenes and a lot of codec conversations. So that happened, and then Metal Gear Solid 2 had a total mindfuck by Hideo Kojima. By the first hour, 2 hours, you're playing as Snake, and then shit happens, and suddenly you're playing as this douchebag named Raiden, who eventually they fill in his backstory, and he eventually becomes a really cool character. But God, was it annoying when that happened when I first played Metal Gear Solid 2. So, anyways, forgetting that for right now. Metal Gear Solid 2, I bought the game but didn't have a PlayStation 2. I was living in Colorado. I lived in Colorado for like a year, maybe 2 years, and then I moved back to Ohio where I live now and have my whole life. But I borrowed someone's PlayStation 2 just to play the game, and I played it straight through up until near the end, and I couldn't stay awake anymore, and then I slept and got up and then played the rest. And Metal Gear Solid 2 is amazing on so many levels, and the story is even crazier than the first game. But again, the story is super important, and you can't really play Metal Gear Solid 2 without playing 1, because you're not going to get the story. It's so connected and so based on the story of Metal Gear Solid 1. You really need to play that to play 2. I mean, you could play 2 and get parts of the story, but you're not going to get all of it. Metal Gear Solid 2 even comes with a thing on the disc that you read that fills you in on the story of Metal Gear Solid 1. So you can do that. If you don't want to play Metal Gear Solid 1, you can read the story of Metal Gear Solid 1 through these things on the disc. That's fine. You can do that. I think it's even on the HD collection. It comes with that too. I have the HD collection on the 360, and it comes. The Metal Gear Solid 2 menu still has all those text things, and you can read through it. And it's not a hugely long read. I would say it's like a novella. It's not like a short story. It's more like a novella, I think. I don't know. It only takes a couple hours to read, if that. And it fills you in on most of the story and actually gives you some insight into stuff that was happening at the same time as the events in the story, but to other characters that you didn't see during the event. I mean, you only saw a little bit of. Anyways, it's cool. It fills in more of the story, so that's cool. But you also kind of miss out on some of the story too. I don't know. It's great. If you don't want to play Metal Gear Solid 1, you can just read that. And then play Metal Gear Solid 2. Though I would still recommend Metal Gear Solid 1 is amazing. However, I know I'm going off on a million different tangents, but there was a remake of Metal Gear Solid 1 on the GameCube, but it was done by Silicon Knights, and the guy who directed the cutscenes made them completely fucking ridiculous, and they had to redo all the voice acting, and they couldn't get all of the voice actors. Like Mei Ling isn't the same voice actor, and Oh, I'm blanking on her name. The woman. Ah, sorry, my computer's turning its monitor off. The woman, Doctor Naomi Hunter, yeah, something, yeah. Uh, anyways, she doesn't. She's got the same voice actress, and it's, and I'm blanking on the actress's name now. But she's the one who did Female Shepherd and uh, the Mass Effect series. I can't think of her name. Anyways, and she's been in a million games. If you've watched my Let's Play, she was in The Dark Eye. So, I mean, she's been in so many games. She's like, anyways, and in the remake, she doesn't talk with an accent, whereas in the original she did. And like I said, the cutscenes are so fucking stupid in the remake, and the voice acting, even of like Snake, the main character, doesn't sound the same. It, I don't know. In general, there's a blog post on the internet where someone basically explains why Metal Gear Solid should be played on the PlayStation, not the GameCube. How they completely fucked things up with the GameCube remake. So don't play that. I mean, you can if you want to see the differences, but play the PlayStation version first, because it just ruins things. If you have no other option, play the GameCube one, but really don't play it. So, anyways, Metal Gear Solid 2. Then on the PlayStation 2, I actually played it the first time, like I said, on a borrowed PS2, but then it came out on PC, just like Metal Gear Solid 1 did. And it's funny, when I played it the second time, I played it on PC, and there were parts of the game that didn't run well. Any of the water segments when you're swimming, there were a couple sections in Metal Gear Solid 2 where you're swimming. My computer could not handle it, and I had to do some fucking weird workarounds to get past those sections. But anyways, the PC version is great, and the HD collection version is actually based on the PC version. With the way I can tell just by the way it works, and that is a great version of the game. But at the time, the system requirements were way higher than they really should have been. But yeah, it doesn't matter now. Computers these days can play it easily. Assuming it still works. I don't know if it works on Windows 7. I haven't tried it. I've got the HD collection on 360, so I don't need the PC version anymore. Because the PC controls with mouse and keyboard are terrible. So playing Metal Gear Solid 2 on the PC, I always use a controller anyway. So there's no point in playing the PC version if you have the HD collection anyways. Speaking of PC versions, there's the version of Metal Gear Solid that came out on Metal Gear Solid 1. It came out on the PC. Is really cool because you can play most of the game in first person. Not all of it. You can't shoot your guns in first person, for instance. Or can you? Or maybe you can't move and shoot? I don't know. It's limited, but it's really cool for someone like me who's played through Metal Gear Solid 1 so many times. It's really cool to be able to look around in that world in first person. Now, in the PlayStation version, you could hold down I think it was triangle, and you could look around in first person, but you couldn't move while looking around in first person. So basically, you'd walk to a place and hold down that button and look around. And that was cool. I did that a lot in Metal Gear Solid 1 on the PlayStation, but the PC version, being able to play most of the game from first person, it feels like you're there. That's why first-person games are so amazing, because you feel more immersed. And so that's really cool. Unfortunately, getting that version is called Integral, to work on modern operating systems is a pain in the ass. There are ways to do it. I've done it. I can't remember how to do it now, but you can Google. So those games happened in order, and then Metal Gear Solid 3 came out, and it's a prequel. And it didn't come out on PC either, which pissed me off because I still didn't have a PS2. So, I was so mad, and I couldn't play it. But it was also a prequel, and I hated the fact that it was a prequel because it was out of order. This whole idea of recording this right now is because I want to talk about order. Metal Gear Solid 3 being a prequel drove me crazy. Just the idea of it. While I do want to know the story, I've still never played Metal Gear Solid 3, by the way. Even though I own the HD collection on the 360. I will play it someday. It's just, it's that prequel thing. I'm way more interested in the story that's happening in what you would call the present day of the series than shit that happened in the past. Even though I know it ties in. So, Metal Gear Solid 3 came out on the PS2. I wanted to play it. It didn't come out on the PC. I was really pissed off about that. And I never played it. And so many people were saying, oh, it's the best game in the series. It's so many people's favorite game of the series. And I think the reason that is because it was a prequel, a lot of people would go to their friends and say, oh, you should just play Metal Gear Solid 3. You don't need to play the other ones because it's a prequel. It's the first game technically in the series. You should play that. And I'm sure it was a lot of people's first Metal Gear game. And that's why it's their favorite. And of course, I haven't played it, so I'm sure it's amazing. I've heard from people that love the first one and second one that it's amazing. So I know it is. I just haven't played it myself. And I need to. I will. But my problem is Metal Gear Solid 4 came out, and it came out only on the PS3. And I don't have a PS3. Well, okay, technically I have one that's broken. I bought it broken intending to fix it, and I couldn't fix it. Eventually, someday I'll have a PS3. So, I've got the HD collection to play Metal Gear Solid 3 and Peace Walker, which was a direct sequel to Metal Gear Solid 3. And I need to get a PS3 so I can play 4. So once I finally have a PS3 and can play 4... I'll finally play through 3, Peace Walker, and then 4. But it's the whole thing with order, and also, like, I know if I had a PS3 right now, I still would make myself play Metal Gear Solid 3 and Peace Walker first. Or at least Metal Gear Solid 3. I don't remember when Peace Walker came out. It might have been around the same time as 4, so it might not exactly tie in. Like, you have to play Peace Walker before you play 4. But, I don't know, I have to look at that. But I'll probably end up playing it first. So basically, I need a PS3. Because I don't want to play Metal Gear Solid 3 and or Peace Walker and then have to not play 4 for another few years. I hate that. I want to be able to play it immediately if I'm still in the mood for it. And I need a PS3 that functions, you know. So eventually I will play Metal Gear Solid 3 and Peace Walker and 4, and then Ground Zeroes and Phantom Pain. But the order thing. Metal Gear Solid 3 being a prequel just made me not interested in playing it. Like, if it had been a direct sequel to 2, I would have probably gone out of my way to get a PS2 and play that as soon as I could have. But because it was a prequel, that actually stopped me from going out of my way to get a PS2 to play it. And the fact it wasn't on PC. If it was on PC, I would have played it. But because it was on PS2, and because I've been basically poor my entire life and didn't have the money to get a PS2 at the time, I didn't play it. But if it had been a direct sequel, I would have found a way to play it. So it's just like the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. Now, anyone who listening to this should read that book series. It's amazing. And I'm not going to spoil anything about it, but the third or fourth book, I think it was the fourth book. Yeah, the fourth book, Wizard and Glass. That book is almost entirely a prequel. Like, the main character, it starts off with the main character of the series telling the story of something that happened to him as a kid, well, as a teenager, a young adult, whatever. And I had the exact same problem I had with Metal Gear Solid 3. It's a prequel. And I was so into the Dark Tower series at that point. I was so into what was happening that reading an entire book that takes place years before did not interest me. It drove me crazy. I had to fight to read through it. In fact, I only read about halfway through the book and stopped. And it was like, and it wasn't until like a year or two later that I finally picked it up again, picked up the whole series and reread the first three, and then finally made my way through 4. And it's a great book. In fact, just like Metal Gear Solid 3, it is most people's favorite of the series. It's a great story. It really is. When I read it the second time, because I knew what was coming, that was part of the problem. With the Dark Tower series, I didn't know that the 4th book was going to be a prequel ahead of time. I just started reading it, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting, I guess, that there's stuff that happened in the past. Now, can we get back to the present? And then it spent the whole book in the past. Drove me insane. Also, can you tell how fast I'm talking because I've had a lot of caffeine? Anyways, it drove me nuts. I finally read it, and it was great. And now there's another book that happens after that prequel story that he wrote after he finished the Dark Tower series that I still haven't read. Maybe someday I will. When I decide to reread the Dark Tower series, maybe I'll read the first 3, read the beginning of read most of Wizard and Glass, then read that book, then read 5. Oh, God. Whatever. I'm obsessed with order. I hate doing things out of order. But even though, like Metal Gear Solid 3, even though technically in the storyline, like, it is the first, quote-unquote, first game of where it's put in the storyline, it's still not. Like, to me, I could never play Metal Gear Solid 3 having not played Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear Solid 2. Because the story in Metal Gear Solid 3 is heavily influenced by the story that happened in the first 2 games. Well, and the 2 games before that on the NES and SNES. But the idea of playing that first, I never would have done it. Most likely. To go back to something, the spoilers thing I talked about earlier, I don't want to get into it too deep, but that is also a thing that ruins me on games. Like, I didn't play BioShock 1 because of a spoiler of the big, huge twist in the game. There's a big twist, and I got it spoiled, and it made me not want to play the game. So, it didn't bother me to play BioShock Infinite, which didn't entirely tie into BioShock. Except it does. So I played BioShock Infinite and made myself go back and play BioShock 1. And then I played the Burial at Sea. No, I went back, played BioShock 1, then replayed BioShock Infinite. Then I played the Burial at Sea. That's how much order matters to me. I played BioShock 1, and I had already played BioShock Infinite, but order matters so much that I played BioShock Infinite again before I played the Burial at Sea DLC, which are pretty much their own game, like a third game. We're not talking about BioShock 2. It doesn't count. Shh, doesn't count. Well, sort of. Anyways. But yeah, I'm so obsessed with order that I had to do that. I had to replay BioShock Infinite, which, well, I wanted to do anyways because I love BioShock Infinite. And BioShock 1 is great, but if it hadn't been spoiled to me and I had played it when I originally wanted to, it would have had a bigger impact on me, but because it was spoiled, it didn't. Anyways, and then the Burial at Sea DLC just fucked over the story of both games, and did I ever post that episode where I talked about Burial at Sea? I don't know. Probably not. I don't remember. I recorded an episode all about that. I don't remember if I posted it. Probably. I have no idea. So, order drives me crazy. I can't, like, For instance, a few years ago, I wanted to watch Star Trek Deep Space Nine because when it aired, I didn't watch it. I watched Voyager, but I didn't watch DS9 because it was on a channel that I think our television reception was terrible at getting. So I didn't watch Deep Space Nine. So when I finally wanted to watch it, of course I was like a kid. I was like at the time DS9 originally aired. So when I finally wanted to watch it, I had to rewatch The Next Generation. I didn't watch the original series. That's a whole different thing. Whatever. I'm not saying it's terrible. It's just it's an acquired taste. Some people love the original series, some people don't. But I had to watch The Next Generation, the entire show, and watch DS9, which made me rewatch Voyager because I had to do everything in order. Because that's how I am. It's like an OCD kind of thing. Like, I know actual OCD. It's not actual OCD. It's the Rhett and Link on YouTube did a video called My OCD. I think that was the name of it. Talking about this other kind of OCD that everyone has, that everyone says, my OCD doesn't let me do that, or my OCD makes me do certain things, or whatever. Where everyone supposedly has an OCD-like habit about certain things, that kind of thing. Mine is order, obviously, one of mine. And spoilers, and yeah. Speaking of TNG and spoilers, God, I guess I am talking about spoilers in this. I didn't intend to, but I had a friend who was watching Star Trek: The Next Generation. We did it. I don't know if I've talked about this in an episode before or not. I can't remember, but we did an exchange. I would watch Degrassi, or however you pronounce Degrassi: The Next Generation, and she would watch Star Trek: The Next Generation. It was a weird exchange. Whatever. But she only watched the first 4 seasons, and whereas I watched like 10 seasons of that fucking show. Fuck that. Anyways, she was like not. She's the kind of person who hates people that don't hate people, but she can deal with spoilers. Spoilers don't bother her. In fact, she likes spoilers. She will, if she's watching an episode of something and the storyline isn't going to get resolved for episodes, she will just look it up because she doesn't want to wait. That drives me nuts. So she was driving me particularly nuts about that the one night, and so she was in the middle of the first season of TNG, and here we go, spoilers for the first season of TNG. And I said, "Whoa, you don't mind spoilers, huh?" And we went back and forth on the spoiler thing for a long time, arguing. And so I said, "Okay, well, Tasha Yar dies. Tasha Yar is gonna die, and her death is completely fucking pointless, and she dies just like it just happens, and it's dumb. And while it does affect some of the crew, it's just it's dumb." And she was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you told me that. Why would you?" And then I basically, I was trying to make a point that spoilers are terrible and it's not a good idea to always know things. And I guess I made my point, but I don't know, I kind of ruined it for her, and she was mad at me for a long time. But I made my point, and I'm a terrible person. But still. Spoilers. I hate. They're tied together, man. They're watching something out of order is the same thing as spoilers. Really. I hate spoilers. I can't even watch. I avoid movie trailers. Hell, I don't even know what movies have come out in the last few years. I haven't had television in years. So I don't know what movies are out. I don't pay attention to news sites. I don't look at news sites. Only the big ones that make a big splash in like the gaming community or various places do I even hear about. But trailers these days spoil the entire fucking plot of movies. And I can't stand watching them. It, it's like even like the directors in the movies and the actors in the movies, they get pissed off when trailers come out that spoil all the best jokes and the actual whole storyline. And like the okay, right now I just read the book for The Martian by Andy Weir. I think that's his name, Andy Weir. Yeah. And there's a movie coming out where Matt Damon plays the guy from in the book, and the fucking trailer spoils it. Why would they? It doesn't bother me so much because I already read the book, and I really hope that movie's good, but half of the hilarity in the book is based on the language the guy uses. He says fuck all the time. And they're not going to do that in the movie. I think it's probably going to be rated PG, or at the most PG-13. So, hopefully PG-13. I don't know. I should look that up. But, yeah. Spoilers. Fuck. I hate spoilers. And I hate things out of order. It's all tied together. Order, spoilers. It's all the same. It really is. So, I don't know why I came into this thinking I wasn't going to talk about spoilers. This is me talking about spoilers. I hate spoilers. I hate them. Like I said, it kept me from playing BioShock for years, and it still ruined the experience. That moment in the game, not being specific, not spoiling, but that moment in the game that twist happens, was still pretty cool, but it wasn't the same. And it's also why I haven't played Knights of the Old Republic. The BioWare Knights of the Old Republic RPG, the single player one, not the Old Republic, but Knights of the Old Republic. I haven't played that because there's a big twist in that fucking game that I've already heard what happens, and so I still haven't played that. That's how much it fucks with me. That's how much it bothers me. Whereas I know that's an amazing game, and I love Star Wars, even though, well, the prequels, whatever, and some of the games are terrible, and some of them are pretty good, but that game, I heard so many good things. It's made by BioWare before they became shit, and I'm not saying they're they're kind of shit. I don't know. Before the big thing happened where the doctors left and all that shit happened, it was the old BioWare that made Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2 and Dragon Age. It was and what was that? That Jade Empire. I still haven't played that. That one I need to play too. I don't know jack shit about that plot, so that one is not spoiled to me. And someday I'll play it. But Knights of the Old Republic, there's a big twist, and I know the twist, so I haven't played it. Even though I know I would probably enjoy that game, especially because I grew up with Star Wars. Like, my mother was a Star Wars nerd, hardcore Star Wars nerd of the first 3 movies. Way before there was any mention of the prequels, she had all the action figures and collectible plates, all kinds of shit. She had there was a model kit you could buy, a very detailed model kit of the Millennium Falcon. It was like 2 feet long, and she had it hanging from the corner of the ceiling in our dining room. It was fucking amazing to look at. But she ended up having to, like I said, I've been poor my whole life. She ended up having to sell it and sell a lot of the Star Wars stuff. My mother died a couple years ago, and I still have some of her stuff, all of her stuff that she still had, and most of the Star Wars stuff is gone because over the years she had to sell it, and it's terrible. But whatever, that's life. But I grew up with Star Wars, so I would love Knights of the Old Republic, but I just haven't played it because the story's been fucking ruined. Order, spoilers, all that. Fuck. Alright. You're probably hearing a lot of background noise while I'm doing this because I'm gesturing and throwing things and anyways, I'm done rambling. This ramblatory rant, or this special episode of Ramblatory Nonsense has concluded. Yeah. So that's that. Goodbye, guys. Goodbye.